Hello everyone, welcome back. My name is Mark and this is Mark's Coding Projects. So on this channel I will be showing you all of the programming projects that I'm working on in the hope that some of you will find it interesting and you can give it a go yourself, maybe learn a thing or two. That's the goal. So as promised, today is going to be a testing video. So in the last tutorial we set up a way of linking two client connections together so that they could play a game of Connect 4. I wrote all the code out, fantastic, but I kind of crashed and I didn't really fancy testing it. So that's what we're going to be doing in today's video. So how are we going to go about testing? Well, the first thing that I think we need to do is we need to define what it is we're actually going to be testing. So the nitty gritty of it is that we need to make sure that this method, this save connection method, is working properly. And we can do that in a number of ways. So first of all, if you'll remember from the last tutorial, we assigned a bunch of values to our connections if a connection was made. What I mean by a connection, by the way, in this context, is if two clients match with each other. So it's not as if a client is connecting to a server. That's a connection, that's true, but this isn't what we're talking about. Connections in this instance are connections between two clients. So they've matched and they're playing a game. So the first criteria that we set out was we needed to search all the connections that we have, and we need to see if we can find one that isn't already connected. That's the point of this if statement. So if we find a connection that isn't connected, the incoming connection that's just been made, so the new client that's just joined the server, will be matched with that not unconnected player. So the way that works is we're going to call this constructor from server connections, and we're going to add it to our list of connections. We're going to find out the index of it, so where it is, what number it is in the list. We're going to set its connection status to true, and we're going to set its opponent's connection status to true, and we're going to set its opponent's element number to the index. So that means we're going to set its opponent's element number to the index of the connection that's just been made. So the element number, the point is that it points to your opponent. So in order to test that all works, the simplest way that I can think of is by using print statements. Now, print statements are really useful because they don't really require any sort of high-level coding or anything. You can just print statement. The knack is figuring out exactly what it is. Sorry, well, no. A better way of phrasing this. The knack to it is setting it up so that it's logical. So that because there will be times when none of your print statements print. And it's like, okay, so the whole thing's broken. That's fairly straightforward. But what do you do when only 3 statements print? What do you do in 5? It's good to kind of have a particular purpose for each individual print statement. And it's also good to say, okay, well, what possible reason could this have for, what specific reason, could this have for breaking? So what I'm going to be doing first off is I'm going to be testing that the indexes are working correctly. Oh dear, I've clicked a lot of buttons that I didn't mean to click. System, there we go, and X. Okay, so this test is going to determine where the new connection is placed in the list. So we're going to call it test new connection list number. That's what we'll call it. Really catchy title. So what this this is going to be doing is it's going to be saying, okay, so where is the new connection stored within our list? You may have guessed it. The next test is going to test where the old connection is stored. So there's a couple of different reasons for doing this. First of all, we want to make sure that this new element is going where we expect it to go. That's important. The next thing is that we need to make sure that it can still find the previous element. So if I have one connection and then I make another connection, then this value should be 0. So if we have one connection, then that connection will be the very first element of our list, and therefore its index will be 0. So we expect this value to be 0. If this value isn't 0, then we know that for some reason something else is populating this list, and that's a problem. Equally, if we then go on to the second connection and say this value is 0, fine, but then this value is 2, then we've got a connection in the middle somewhere. So something is being stored between our existing connection and the new one that's just connected. And again, that's a problem. So both of these print statements will highlight that. The next thing that we're going to do is we are going to do print. I should probably just copy and paste. That'll be quicker. Yeah. So if I copy this, paste it here. What this is going to do is going to test connected. Okay, and all that means is we are going to be making sure that this setter method is working correctly. Again, it's a little test. I think it's safe to assume that it will work, but there will be chances in certainly bigger projects where this might not be the case. You know, in this example, it's literally just true going to a setter, and that's it. But, you know, if, say, there were steps in between this would be worth testing. So I thought I would include it anyway. Equally, if we go up here, we can do the same tests on the existing element as well. So, sorry, we can't do it up there. If we do tests, I'll call it test old connected. So old is the one that we already have, and new is the one coming in. So we'll just keep that as a general conversion. So test new connected, and we'll do s connections dot get index. And again, this one isn't really required for such a small project. However, it is worth it just in the event that we improve the functionality or something and there's a step in between. It's just something that we need to double check. Equally, these are testing two different things. So you notice this statement is testing that this setter method worked. However, this statement is testing the constructor worked. So they are both useful to some degree. Finally, we are going to test the old element number. Again, this is what am I thinking? This is just it's just like a nice to have. So this is just making sure that it matches what we have up here. So for this test, the old element number should be well, actually, I've got these the wrong way around. Yeah, let's do this. Okay. Keep using the right way around. Okay, so we always go old to new. So this old element number should match the new connection list. And the reason for that is because the old element number will point to your opponent's index. It's designed so that it points to wherever your opponent is stored within the list. So I do sconnections dot get index. Oh no, sorry, get x dot get element number. Fantastic. Okay, and then I'll copy and paste this. So again, it's not massively necessary. It is just nice to have to make sure things work out okay. Finally, we can do some preliminary checks before we get to all of this. So we can check that our first connection is being stored successfully using our first constructor. And the way that we're going to do that is by, what are we going to do? So my plan is we will take the Boolean value and we will check it. And the reason for that is because the Boolean value is set by default. So you'll notice here this second constructor sets a Boolean value. However, this first constructor doesn't, but this Boolean value is automatically set within the object. Therefore, we can still test against it even if we don't use a constructor which explicitly edits the value, if that makes sense. So if I do a quick line down here, dot print line, and I will do sconnections. Oh dear, that's not gone well, has it? Oh, it's because it's called something different. That's why. Dot get connected. Yeah. So this is just making sure that this object is that it's in the list, it's been created, but that it isn't actually connecting to anything. Because again, we could be creating the object and then for some reason it's setting it to true by accident. That's a problem. So we're going to test against that as well. So server's up. We're then going to bring up one client. Cool. Okay, so false. Boom. The object, it has been created, so this constructor has been called. Fantastic. It's been added to the list, presumably, otherwise this would have failed. And we have a connected. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a second client. And this is going to do a bit more thorough testing. So we've got two clients. We can see the main class was stored in index 0, so that works. We can see that the new class, the test multiple connections, was stored in 1. They're both saved as true for connected, so that's great. So in theory, when our if statement loops back round, this won't, well actually we know because the if statement has triggered successfully, otherwise these wouldn't have matched up with each other. And then finally we have these two which match up. So old element number matches new connection list number. New element number matches old connection list number. So they're pointing to each other, which is great. So if when we build this further, the server will be able to get the correct opponent that you're matched up with, and it'll be able to send them a board, and vice versa. A slight problem I've noticed is this false at the bottom, and I'll have to have a think about that one. Okay, so if you remember, false is only returned when this statement is reached. Now, this statement is at the end. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so there is a flaw in the logic here. So what I've realized is that every time every time that we try to save a connection, by default is going to create an extra connection. And the reason for that is because this code here is actually outside of the for loop. So you notice the for loop stops here. So you see these two match up there and there. So in order to rectify this, we're going to make an else statement. And all we're going to do is we're going to... Oh, is that going to work? That's a good question. I don't know, that's not going to work, is it? Okay, so my thinking was, well, if this is false, we will just create a new connection. It's like, well, no, that doesn't work. Because the idea of this loop is that it's going to check every single connection. So we can't have it that if it fails on the first connection, just save it as unconnected. That doesn't work. You might have 50 connections. So what else can we do? We could have a Boolean. That's something that might be worth happening. Might be worth doing, sorry. Yeah, okay. So if I create a Boolean value, and I'm going to call it, what am I going to call it? No, that's right. I'm going to call it not connected. Equals false. Okay. Oh no, I'm a bit confused. Okay, so I'm thinking, is it possible to put a Boolean within the if statement? So the if statement is going to connect a client. If a client gets connected, then we will change the value of the Boolean. If a client doesn't get connected, however, then we'll leave it as the default. And if it is the default value by the end of the for loop running, it's going to trigger this code. That's what I think is going to happen. So if I say not connected equals true, and I set not connected equal to false, and then, oh, why are you upset? Sign's not, yeah, no, it's not connected. Give me a second, jeez. So if I then make an if statement, that's going to ruin my entire program. I'm joking. If I make an if statement here that says not connected, or sorry, I'll do the exclamation mark thing, not connected, then I run this. Is that right? No, it's not. That's incorrect. No, we just want the normal not connected. So what we're saying here is we have a Boolean, and if a connection is achieved, then it's going to be set to false. And this code here is not going to be run. If, however, this remains true and no connection is achieved, then we will save the connection in this way. And so the reason why it's creating a problem is because I think what's happening is it's creating this new connection object in here, saving it and everything, but then once the for loop terminates, it then does it again. So you've got duplicates. So you've got the same client listed twice, one with an opponent and once without an opponent. Obviously, we don't want to do that. So I think if I run this again, that will solve that issue, hopefully. And just so we're clear, the way that is solved is if we have two clients connect and one of them, on the first run, this print statement says false. However, on the second run, this print statement won't be triggered. That's the theory. Okay, so run the server. Cool, server's up. Run the main class. So yeah, we've got false. Fine, great. Now this is, oh dear, I've clicked the wrong button. There we go. Cool. Okay, so we've got 2 clients on and no false. So in theory, we now have 2 objects within our list, and that represent the 2 connections that have been made by the 2 client applications. They point to each other and they're being stored correctly. So overall, that counts as a win to me. I hope you've enjoyed it. In the next video, I will be kind of building off of this functionality, so that now that we have this store of connections, I'm going to be able to use it to transfer data between the 2 clients. So that functionality will be built in the next episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. Like, comment, and subscribe. And obviously, if there's any other videos that you want to see or that you want me to make, then let me know. And I'll hopefully see you all in the next one.